I got my keys.
Okay, get your keys out.
Oh, this is so stupid.
This is pretty stupid.
You got the sandwich? Okay.
Okay, on the count of three.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Alice's Restaurant.
1, 2, 3, go.
This is a song called Shiny Restaurant.
You're chilling here at the bottom. You're looking for something shiny.
I'm kidding. Here we go. You ready? Well, this here's a song called Alice's Restaurant. It's about Alice in the restaurant, but Alice's Restaurant is not the name of the restaurant. It's just the name of the song. And that's why we call this song here Alice's Restaurant. Help me out. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. I said, walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad tracks. And you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Well, friends, it all happened 4 Thanksgivings ago. It was about 4 years ago on Thanksgiving when me and my friend went down to see Alice, her husband Ray, and Facha the dog. Now, Alice doesn't live in the restaurant. She lives in a church nearby the restaurant in the bell tower. And living in the bell tower, they got a lot of room downstairs where the pews used to be, seeing as how they took out all of the pews. And having all that room, they decided that they didn't have to take out their garbage for an extra special long time. Well, having all that garbage down there, we decided it would be a friendly gesture if we was to take all that garbage down to the town dump. So we piled the half a ton of garbage in back of a red VW microbus, took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, and headed off towards the town dump. But when we got there, there was a big sign on a chain across the road saying closed on Thanksgiving, and we had never heard of a dump being closed on Thanksgiving before. So with tears in our eyes, we drove off into the sunset looking for another place to dump the garbage. Well, we didn't find one till we came to a side road, and off of the side road was a 15-foot cliff, and at the bottom of the cliff was another pile of garbage. And we decided that one big pile would be better than 2 little ones, and rather than bring that one up, we decided to throw our one down. That's what we did. Got back in the red VW microbus, took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, headed back to Alice's house, had a Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat, went to sleep, and didn't get up until the next day when we got a phone call from an Officer Obie. He said, "Kid, found your name on an envelope at the bottom of a half ton of garbage. Just wanted to know if you had any information about it." I said, "Officer Obie, I cannot tell a lie. I put that envelope under all that garbage." Well, he didn't believe me, and after talking about 45 minutes on the telephone, we finally arrived at the truth of the matter, and he said we'd have to go down and pick up the garbage, but first we'd have to go down and meet him at the police officer station. So we got back in the red VW microbus with the shovels and rakes and implements of destruction and headed off towards the police officer station. Now, friends, there was only 1 or 2 things that Obie could have done to us, and the first was that he could have congratulated us and gave us a medal for being so brave and honest on the telephone, which wasn't likely, and we didn't expect it anyway. And the second was that he could have bawled us out and told us never to be seen driving garbage around the vicinity again, which is what we expected. But when we got there, there was the third possibility, which we had not even counted upon, and we was both immediately arrested, handcuffed. I said, "Officer Obie, I don't think I can pick up the garbage with these handcuffs on." He said, "Kid, shut up." Getting back to the patrol car, and I got back to the patrol car and drove to the, quote, scene of the crime, unquote. Now, friends, let me tell you about the town of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, where all this was taking place. They got 3 police officers, 2 police cars, and 1 police dog. But when we got to the scene of the crime, there was 5 police officers, 3 police cars, and 2 police dogs, making this the biggest crime in the last 50 years. And everybody was trying to get in a newspaper story about it. And friends, they was using up all kind of cop equipment that they had hanging around the police officer station there. They was using plaster, tire track, footprints, handprints, dog-smelling prints. They took 27 8x10 color glossy photographs of circles and arrows and a paragraph on back of each one, explaining what each one was to be used as evidence against us. Took pictures of the northwest corner, the southwest corner, the approach, the getaway, and that's not to mention the aerial photography. Well, friends, he brought us back to the cell, and he said, kid, I'm going to have to put you in the cell. And I said, okay, Officer Obie. And he said, but before I put you in the cell, I need your wallets and your belts. And I said, Officer Obie, I can understand why you don't want our wallets because we don't have any money to spend around in your nice jail cell there. But why do you want our belts? He said, kid, we don't want any hangings. And I said, Officer Obie, do you really think I was going to hang myself for being a litter bug? He said, kid, shut up, just making sure. And he was making sure. And friends, we were there for 4 or 5 hours before Alice came. You remember Alice? That's who the song's about. Well, Alice came and she bailed us out, and we got back in the red VW microbus, took shovels and rakes and implements of destruction, and headed off towards Alice's house. Had another Thanksgiving dinner that couldn't be beat. Went to sleep and didn't get up until the next day when we had to go to court. Well, friends, we walked in, court sat down. Obie walked in, sat down. A man came in, said, all rise. We stood up. Obie stood up. Judge walked in, sat down with the CNI dog, and the dog sat down. We sat down. Obie, he looked at his 27 8x10 color glossy photographs with circles and arrows and a paragraph on back of each one, explained what each one was to be used as evidence against us. Then looked at the judge. Then looked at the judge's CNI dog. Then looked back at the judge. Then he looked back at his 27 8x10 color glossy photographs with circles and arrows and a paragraph on back of each one, explained what each one was to be used as evidence against us. And then he started to cry. You see, friends, Obie came to the realization that it was a typical case of American blind justice, and he was never going to see those 27 8x10 color glossy photographs with the circles and arrows and the paragraph on back of each one, explained what each one was to be used as evidence against us. But we had to pay $50 and pick up the garbage anyway. But friends, that's not what I'm here to talk to you about. I'm here to talk to you about the draft. The what? The draft. Well, shiny draft. You see, friends, there's a building down in New York City on Whitehall Street where you go in and they inject you, inspect you, infect you, detect you, neglect you, and select you. Well, I was going in there for my physical examination to join the Army, and I got good and drunk the night before so I could look and feel my best when I got there that morning. And friends, I was going through, and they was doing all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly-looking things to me there. They was inspecting, injecting, infecting, detecting, neglecting, and selecting me, and I was walking down through that whole place, and finally I walked up to the place, and I sat down, and the guy came in, and the sergeant came in. This is where I always get stuck.
That's all right. This is awesome.
The sergeant came in. He said, kid, I want you to go see the psychiatrist, room 604. Well, I walked down to room 604, and I said, Shrink, I want to kill. I want to kill. I want to kill. I want to kill. I want to see blood, gore, veins in my teeth. I want to eat dead, burned bodies. I want to kill. And I started jumping up and down, going, kill, kill, kill. And he started jumping up and down, going, kill, kill, kill. And before you know it, we was both jumping up and down, going, kill, kill, kill. Till finally a sergeant walked in the room, pinned the medal on me, sent me down the hall, said, kid, you're our boy. I proceeded on down the hall, getting more injections, inspections, infections, detection, neglections, selections. And I went down the hall, and they was doing all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly things to me, and they was poking me and prying me. Left no part of my body untouched. Till finally I came to the last little part of the thing there, and the sergeant came up to me, the guy.
Yes.
And the sergeant said, kid, we got one last question for you. Have you ever been arrested? And I proceeded to tell him about the Alice's Restaurant massacre with the red VW microbus and the shovel, rakes, and implements and a half ton of garbage. And he said, kid, did you ever go to court? And And I proceeded to tell him about the blind judge and the 27 8x10 color glossy photographs and the circles and arrows and paragraph on back of each one. He stopped me there and he said, "Kid, I want you to go sit on that bench over there that's marked Group W." So, friends, I walked over to the Group W bench. That's the bench where they put you to find out if you're moral enough to join the Army after committing your special crime. And friends, there was all kinds of mean, nasty, ugly-looking people on this bench there. Friends, they was mean and nasty and ugly and they was all looking at me and they was nasty and ugly and everything and the meanest, nasty, ugly look. And friends, you know what they had on that bench there?
What?
Mother stabbers.
No.
Mother rapers. Father stabbers. And father rapers sitting there next to me on the bench. And finally, one of the meanest, nastiest, ugliest looking, meanest, nastiest, ugliest father rapers of them all came up to me and sat next to me on the bench. And he said, "Kid, what'd you get?" I said, "I didn't get nothing. I had to pay $50 and pick up the garbage." He said, "Kid, what were you arrested for?" I said, "Littering," and they all moved away from me on the bench. Till I said, "In creating a nuisance." Then they all came back, shook my hand. We had a fantastic time sitting there on the bench talking about crime, mother stabbing, father rape, and all kind of mean, nasty, ugly things that we started talking about on the bench, having a thing. And finally, the guy walked in, the sergeant, he walked in with a piece of paper in his hand. He said, "Kid, why don't you tell me in 47 words and 38 sentences and 47 lines what we're talking about the crime time and everything and the time of the crime and everything the district court you was arrested in, the arresting officer's name and everything, talking about the crime, the time and everything." And he talked for 45 minutes. Of course, nobody understood a single word that he said, but we had fun filling out the forms and playing with the pencils on the bench. Well, I filled it out just like it said and then talked about everything in the Alice's Restaurant Massacre with the 5-part harmony and full orchestration. And finally, I turned the page over to the last page. And friends, there in the middle of the last page, in capital letters, in parentheses, in the middle of it, said, "Kid, do you feel you're moral enough to join the Army?" I walked up to that sergeant. The guy, sergeant. I said, "Sarge, you got a lot of damn gall to ask me if I'm moral enough to join the Army, burn women, kids, houses, children, villages, after being a litter bug." He said, "Kid, we don't like your kind. We're going to send your photograph to Washington." Friends, somewhere in Washington, there's an 8x11 dossier with my photograph in it. And the only reason that I'm singing you this song or telling you this story is because you might know somebody in this position. Or you might be in this position. If you are, there's only one thing you can do. That's to walk into the induction office there on Whitehall Street and sing a bar of Alice's Restaurant and walk out. Friends, they might think you're weird. Or they might not take you. But imagine if two people walked in. Two people. I'm talking two people walk in singing a bar of Alice's Restaurant and walking out in harmony. They might think they're both faggots. Won't take either of them. Well, the lawyer let that pass. This is art right here.
Yes.
Okay. But friends, imagine if three people walked in. Three people walked in singing a bar of Alice's Restaurant and walking out. And friends, they're going to think it's a movement. And that's just what it is. It's the Alice's Restaurant anti-massacre movement. But imagine if 50 people a day, I'm talking 50, walked in singing a bar of Alice's Restaurant and walked out, and friends, they're going to know it's a movement. And we'll wait for it to come around on the guitar here. Ladies and gentlemen, Alice's Restaurant.
Yeah.
No, I'm not through yet, stupid ass. You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Except an Alice, you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. I said, walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad tracks. And you can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. Okay, one more time. That was terrible. You ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant. I said, walk right in, it's around the back, just a half a mile from the railroad tracks, and you can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Damn, man.
That is amazing that you can get that whole song.
Hello? I'm not going to break. Hello? Hello? I'm not going... Where's everybody at? It's Real Radio 104.1. It's Tuttle Talk.